You're about to enjoy a Cloudcast original. Local stories, local storytellers, local brands.
Have you ever felt that you as a woman may not appear to measure up when you see incredible women in strong roles? You may be surprised when hearing from women in these positions and how we all share many of the same challenges. Thank you for joining us for the SheEO Lead-In podcast with Rebecca Jones as we share the journeys of women.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Jones, your host of SheEO. We are on an exploration together to discover more about the personal journeys of incredible women in both career and life. We all have paths to share that sometimes take incredible turns, deep resilience, and courage to navigate. My hopes are that the challenges shared here encourage women to take leaps of faith and growth when a journey feels too difficult or unachievable. There is great strength deep within each one of us. These stories are meant to share the ways strong women have taken their dreams to strive and thrive to new heights despite their sometimes rocky paths and found a way to lead in. Today we are here with Kimberly King, CEO of Kimberly King Media and two-time Emmy Award-winning San Diego media personality. How are you today, Kimberly?
I'm great. Thank you, Rebecca, for having me on. What an honor.
I am so excited. You have had quite the illustrious career. Could you tell us a little bit about all of the things that you've done? Because it is so interesting. And I think our listeners are going to go, oh my gosh, who is this woman if they don't know you? And oh my gosh, how can I be more like her? And I know you've got a lot to tell us today, but tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today.
Well, and first of all, I want to thank you for opening up this conversation for women. I think all women, especially the young women coming up, about, it's not always about our successes. Sometimes it's about our failures that turn into successes. So thank you for opening up the mics and letting people tell their stories, because it's so, in the world of social media where it all appears to be perfect, it's often not. So
no, people don't know.
They don't know what's behind
the screen. Yeah.
Exactly. So I was born in Palm Springs. I grew up in San Diego, so I consider myself a San Diegan. I have two brothers, and my mom and dad divorced when I was young, probably about 8 or 9 years old. And I like to think I have had the best of both of my parents. My mom, after my mom and dad got divorced, worked for PBS Broadcasting, and so we grew up in the studios in the hallways of KPBS right at San Diego State. And I always, around the dinner table, I had a spoon in my hand and would interview my whole family, and reporting live from the dinner table at the Taylor family dinner table. So I always wanted to be like my mom in the broadcast arena, and then my father was a self-made man, very successful in his own business, so the entrepreneurial side. And I feel like I said, I now have blended both my mom and my dad. And as I said, I always wanted to be, in the broadcast area, but I went to a performing arts high school here in San Diego. I went from a Catholic school to a performing arts school, and then I realized, I think I actually want to be on Broadway. And I danced and sang to my heart's delight. I had a blast, kind of like at the beginning of Fame, dancing on the tables at lunchtime. That was all of us. Yes, we did that. But you know what? I realized the Broadway wasn't going to happen. And then I ended up on Broadway because that's where NBC was, downtown Broadway. So I'm like, you know what? God doesn't make mistakes. And it's funny because you have to be specific, right? You have to ask for what you want. And so it was just a different kind of Broadway. But I was a traffic reporter, a feature reporter. I had 3 shows with NBC that I look back with the fondest of memories. We were right in the beginning of moving from Kearny Mesa to downtown where Horton Plaza was thriving at the time. We need some work there. But anyway, it was a blast. It was so much fun. And I thought, I attained a dream that I had always wanted ever since I was young. And it happened. I think what I miss most about, because broadcast has changed so much, but I was a traffic reporter and I flew. I loved flying. I loved being in the helicopter above, watching our city grow. And I saw it every day. And, and just the camaraderie and I thought I made a difference because I told people where to go, traffic-wise, as a traffic reporter. So
get off the freeway now.
Exactly.
Take a detour. It's a mess. That was before Waze.
It was. I was Waze. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. So, the girl with the spoon.
Yes.
That's a pretty interesting story.
I had it wherever I went, and I would just be like, my aunt and uncle just told me the other day. They're like, I remember when you were probably about 10 years old and you would just interview people and, right. It's just fascinating. And you and I were just talking about that. People are interesting and we're social and the world that we live in. And I think now, fortunate, look at you with your podcast and just ways to communicate and find out what is, I always wanted to do Kimberly King behind the scenes because I remember when I was on air and, I'm talking about traffic, weather, whatever the story was that I was doing. But it was oftentimes when we were on the anchor desk and we would just talk about, I was raising kids at the time. My husband in law enforcement. So we would high five in the hallways. I was up at 2:30. He was in at 2:30 and it was like, okay, you're up. But I would tell stories on the air about, oh, Cameron and Carly did this. And when I was in the grocery store or whatever later that day or that week, those are the stories people want to know. Like, dig deeper. What's happening? Why was your hair such a nightmare that morning when you came in, or you only had half of your, face of makeup on or something? Something went on behind the scenes.
Well, I think that goes back to the whole thing of you're a person.
Yep.
You're doing a job. I always tell people, I meet a lot of kids, right?
Yeah.
And people say, wow, I've never met anyone that does what you do. And then I say, well, this is the thing. I'm a mom, like your mom, and I am just doing a job that I love. And that's what I think a lot of people forget, that we're not, even if we're doing something that seems like it's a really big, important job,
right?
We are all figuring it out and we're all working together. And as a community, it's got to be a collective community with different viewpoints and different thoughts and different jobs. And not everyone's going to be in media like you. And not everyone's going to be, working at a restaurant. And, a lot of people have all of these ideas. And how do you bring them together and work together for the good of everyone?
Exactly. And I love that because that's what makes our world go round. And, if we can't talk about it. Yes, there have been so many changes in the world we live in today in 2022, but we can still talk about it and enjoy. That's part of respect and dignity. I've learned a lot, especially taking care of my mom, and we can go into that in a little bit. But there's the senior citizens. I have such a heart for. Look at the lives they've lived. And I don't feel like we give them enough respect. If I could do a show, it would be with every senior citizen to say, what was your life like? Because look at where we are now. They didn't grow up with cell phones and they talked. They met for coffee or they looked you in the eye. And I just want to get back to that. I could probably live very happily in the 1950s.
I couldn't agree with you more. When I was a kid, fun story, I grew up in East County, so El Cajon and Ramona. When I was a little girl, I went to San Diego Dance Academy. It was in Fletcher Hills.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember we used to, I don't even know why we did this, but we would go and we would hang out with seniors in retirement communities.
Aww.
And we would dance for them, but we would also just sit and talk to them.
Yeah.
And I really found it fascinating. And fast forward to when I was 24, I had started in new home sales. And I was 24. My partner was 74.
Oh,
50 years older than me. And his name was Frank Taylor. I remember how he answered the phone and everything. I loved him. I would just sit there because sometimes we weren't too busy. It was at this new home community by Shea Homes out in Alevenheim, and it was called Country Rose. And we would sit there and, we weren't always busy. We would just talk, and I loved listening to him. And I agree with you. We don't give enough respect to our seniors, and we don't learn from their wisdom.
Thank you.
And all of the things that they went through as kids and the depression and the difference in technology and all of that, I think it's really valuable. And, I often talk about this when our kids are communicating only. I don't mean just our kids, our young adults. A lot of them are only communicating via the little cell phone. that they take everywhere with them. It makes me sad because there is a part of actually communication that is face-to-face, meeting with someone, sharing ideas, and it brings civility, for one.
Absolutely.
You would never, ever, ever say something to someone face-to-face that you would on social media, in my opinion.
I absolutely agree, 100%.
And then also brings a melding of ideas because you're kind of give and take. You know, I was at a meeting a couple of weeks ago, or actually it was last week. It feels like a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then someone said, "Oh, didn't you come prepared with your questions?" And I'm thinking, and I said no. Because here's the thing. Yeah, maybe I had some ideas of questions, but when you were having discussion, that actually fosters better participation.
A new idea because you're
Yes.
listening, actively listening.
Correct.
And so when you come in, which fine, if you do have your ideas, but you've opened it up to a discussion and now you're actively listening and saying, "Oh, I hadn't thought about that." And
Right.
there it begins.
But that's how it should always be.
Yeah.
When you're having discussions, because you really can work collaboratively.
Yes. Yep.
Not by paper, not by text, not by email. I think sitting down and face to face and Zooms.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I don't know. They're okay, but I don't love them.
That's going to be a reality show, I think, in the next year or two.
I think it will be. You know, it's
Zoom.
like the Hollywood Squares.
Exactly.
It's just so weird.
It is.
But anyway, you know, I love that we're having this conversation because I again, back to what you originally said about our seniors and our elderly. So many of them have lived these amazing lives, and we just don't listen enough.
You know, and that kind of leads me to something I want to say. And it's, you sent me a list of questions about failing, background, you know, what was your upbringing like? And of course, as we get older and we experience more, but if you don't sit back and take, you know, a value at what you've learned and are grateful for where you've come from, that can be a huge mistake. And I think, you know, at the time that I was on the air here in San Diego, I was very blessed because I started here in San Diego. I went to San Diego State, go Aztecs. But it was just a, you know, great career for me right away. And I look back fondly to those moments. But I took care of my father when he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and it completely halted everything in my life. And, you know, getting to really sit with him in his last 6 months of his life, taking him to doctor's appointments and just really holding his hand and being his advocate. So whether it's a senior citizen, whether it's someone with special needs, someone who's suffering from cancer, that's what really I think God awakened me and said, you know what, humility and listening and being there for somebody who is in need. And so it really turned me around. And then taking care of my mom, who just recently passed. She had Alzheimer's disease and battled it for 8 years. And I've learned so much. And that's what I really want to move forward in doing, is helping others who may be along that same path, or just learning how to really advocate for people who don't have a voice.
Well, these sound like life lessons that you would actually share with others that they could apply. And I think that's really important. And, you know, looking at all of the things that make us who we are, a lot of it is heartbreak.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's face it. I mean, when you go through tough times and you are hurting, which if you look around, a lot of people are hurting right now.
Yeah.
But this is a time where you can find some nugget of goodness in all of it and use it for good.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, and so I love that you're saying this because I think, you know, for our listeners, these are definitely things that may be overlooked because, you know, it's just not something you might talk about every day, these everyday sorts of conversations. So I want to go back to, you've got two kids. You had a boy and a girl, and you had this Cameron and Carly. You had this whole amazing career during the time they were growing up. Sounds like you brought them to things, which was great because they had some participation.
They did.
Do they want to follow in your footsteps?
So funny that you should ask that, Rebecca Jones. It's funny because I look at, so my husband was undercover narcotics while I was on air. And I mentioned, we would kind of be passing ships through the night. So we both have had, a pretty amazing careers, but it didn't, I say this and I'm not struggling through this, but I'm tiptoeing through this a little bit because what you see behind the scenes isn't always perfect, like, you think. And so we had gone to counseling, my husband and I, and the counselor brilliantly said, one of you is going to have to step off the stage. You're both in very intense careers, and my hours were the most intense part of my career. I was on early mornings, 4:30 to be on, and nobody wants to see your alarm go off at 2:30 in the morning to be all prepared and ready to rock and roll. But and then of course, in anyone, I think in law enforcement is what a sacrifice, your service before self. And so it's funny that. I never had a nanny full time. I had my share of help, and God bless Miss Brittany. To this day, I could look, she would come in at the middle of the night or early morning and be there for us. But Cameron and Carly got the best of both worlds. I think that's what I'm trying to say. And they literally, Cameron just graduated from San Diego State and fellow Aztec, and he was a journalism major, journalism, and then I think he was public administration was his minor, and he started working in the industry in media. He's a great writer. Cameron is very super outgoing. He's hilarious. He could actually probably be on Saturday Night Live. He does great impersonations, and I really felt like, oh man. My boy is following in my footsteps. This is great. He did sports on air at San Diego State, and I loved tuning in. And I'm like, man, he is nailing it. But then, as it's not always the plan we have for our kids. Cameron was recruited at an event, a media event, and who better than to Chief Roxana Kennedy from the Chula Vista Police Department, that has the best taste in the world because she came up along. Yeah, she's amazing. I just adore her. And she's so highly respected. I love that her career was always in Chula Vista with the police department, and now she's the chief, and she's making such an amazing difference in the world. But she saw something good in Cameron and said, the minute you graduate, I want you. And literally the day after Cameron graduated in May of 2021, he signed his contract with Chula Vista PD, and he just went through 7 months. It was a little longer than expected because of COVID, but he just graduated last week. And I cannot even tell you the chills I get. It was a regional academy, but David, my husband, was able to pin his badge on, and I had tears of joy, full circle. And I know Cameron, he grew up, well, I have to just tell you this one story. When he was 2 years old, and we took him to, it was called at the time a Say No car show, a Say No to Drugs. Yeah. And so we brought Cameron. I think I was pregnant with Carly at the time, but he just put himself in this little automobile that was the cutest thing. And Cameron thought, he had his balloon. Well, it was a Chula Vista police car, an old-fashioned Chula Vista. So, again, God doesn't make mistakes. Oh my that was set in, wow. during that time. And so when Chief Kennedy, offered the badge and it was at the graduation, she said, things haven't changed, just don't bring a balloon to work. Because he had his balloons in there in the car. But,
oh my gosh.
So super proud of Cameron and his choice. And I'm very proud. In the day and age that we live in, it's tough to be in law enforcement. And so my prayers for Cameron, because we've lost friends, unfortunately. Now I have a husband who law enforcement and now a son. And my daughter, Carly, is a junior in Indiana at Indiana Wesleyan University. She's playing soccer and she's studying criminal justice. And I'm so proud of Carly as well. She's staying with it. She's making a difference on her team. She's not sure exactly what she wants to do. But again, at the graduation, Chief Kennedy was there trying to recruit Carly. So,
what's interesting is you may not know what your calling is, I think, until sometimes later in life. Mm-hmm. When I had my kids, I was 29 when I had my son and then 33 when I had my daughter. And my ex and I had decided I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. And then we started a business when our son was 1. So I was running our business from home. He was doing all the sales, but I did all of the administration work. I had done the cold calling and all of that. And that was after, my real estate career. And then I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to stay home with the kids. And then I was called to public service as, a public servant in government. I look at all of it and I think, how is this possible that I'm almost 40 years old and now I'm doing something different? But you really do know when you're called.
You do.
So Cameron, he went to school. He was doing what he was doing. Right. He thought that's what he wanted. And then he was called because he had a heart for it. So that kind of like makes me think about, how do we even know when that is? And you probably knew. I mean, you actually were probably, because you were walking around with a spoon and all.
I know. But it is funny, just what you said. And I know personally, my faith has everything to do with being able to listen, to know what that calling is. And I think for Cameron, we were raised Catholic. That is just, we're close with our priest. And for spiritual direction, Cameron and Carly went to Catholic school. And I can't speak for them. They have their path. But I know that Cameron's it is a vocation. And what you do is a vocation. Mm-hmm. And you are serving the public. And people, take advantage or just they're flippant about what they perceive is happening. And they feel like, as we mentioned before, on a social media platform, saying things that are hurtful. And meanwhile, you're not getting $1 million for being out there, are you? Neither is Cameron.
No.
Neither. Yeah. And so, it's not for the faint of heart.
Someone's got to do that job too.
Someone's got to do that.
Someone's got to do every job, as we talked about earlier. There are all these different careers in life, and when you find something that you really love,
right,
you have to stick with it.
You do.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go off track for just a minute.
Sure.
Let's go back to a word that you see in yourself that describes who you are. I have a few that come to my mind about you, but you go ahead and tell me what you think.
I think blessed, and I didn't always think that. I think, the failing part of that I mentioned, pride was a big failure. But I also thought, because my contract in TV didn't get renewed, I thought I was the biggest failure ever. And now I look back and I go, thank God. So I feel blessed for that, because look at what else has happened and what is almost in so many ways, it's a pathway to what is about to happen.
Well, that's always how it is, right?
Yep.
I always say everything happens for a reason. Nothing's an accident.
Right.
You pivot, when I moved for one thing, I go, oh my gosh, like look at what has happened now.
Right.
It's always been that way. And you do have to really pay attention, kind of back to that, I actually think paying attention to what is happening in your life and where you feel led, you need to not ignore it.
Don't ignore it.
When you ignore it, oh my gosh, bad things
When
happen.
you think you're in charge, right? I think that's what happens,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
So, did you ever have an instance where men were like under you, that you were in charge of them, and did you feel resistance? I mean, you're beautiful. All women are beautiful, but you're beautiful and you're vivacious and energetic. Did you ever have a situation like that in your career?
I don't necessarily, to be honest with you, it was more women for me because, and I'm talking in the broadcast career, there is a disparaging difference between, your paycheck when you're, maybe over 35 and you start to show some wrinkles. Thank goodness, I'm going to just put this out there, high definition television came out on my way out the door. But I definitely think that I don't want to say something that I'm going to regret, other than it wasn't necessarily men. For me, it was who wanted to be in the chair that I was sitting in. And because it's always a male and a female. Now things have changed. You see an all-female crew, you see a male crew or whatever. But when I was even flying, most of my pilots were men, but we worked tandem. Now I own my own PR and media agency. I call it a boutique agency because it's just a few of us. But I lead men and women, but I think what I would say is that I'm respectful to staying in our lanes. I'm not going to be the one shooting. Yes, could be a creative director in that. I am the CEO. I find my clients, but I definitely allow for people to do what they, I've hired them on.
Right. Well, we all have our specialties, right?
Exactly.
We always have the things that we are really, really good at.
Right.
And if someone's doing a good job, let them
Let 'em
have
rip.
yeah, exactly. Let them have as much as they want to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, what are some lessons that you've learned that young women can apply to their lives?
I think listening is a huge listening to both, where you're being called, as we talked about, but also, and I have actually, I'm mentoring a few young ladies right now that want to get into broadcast, and I love mentoring, just from where I've been to where I am now and seeing the full picture. A lot of times, and you're doing a great job because you're listening, but a lot of times people, when they're doing an interview, they're, stuck to the questions and they're not listening to the answers. And so I think just overall in general, listening is how I lead other women. And then just being comfortable wearing their heels, wearing their tennies or their heels, whatever they're comfortable with.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
confidence, and that is not always an easy thing to gain.
Well, being true to who you are. But I liked what you talk about listening, because back to our original conversation of there's a lot of wisdom in our elderly people.
Yeah.
They really do. They have these life experiences that are so different than ours.
Yeah.
And I think it can help us grow as people. I always tell people, I'm going to be learning things until the day I die.
Please,
I don't know everything.
Exactly.
I'm just a person. I don't know everything, but I am always a student trying to find things. Always reading, always listening. I totally agree with you. And there are a lot of people that have so much wisdom.
Yeah, and it's so funny that, and I don't know if your kids ever did this to me, but all growing up when Cameron and Carly were teenagers, Mom, stop asking so many questions. And it's just because we're students.
Yeah.
And we want to know. And we, my daughter now and I joke about, like, did you just insert yourself? Yes, I did insert myself. I'm your mom. So we joke about it, but it's not just it is the wisdom of our seniors, of our elder, and just having that respect and dignity, allowing those conversations to flow. And I've learned so much. I mean, just even with my mom, she was in hospice at the end of her life. And at the end, I was mostly having the conversations and remembering. But, they're just, it is amazing. These World War II veterans.
I know.
I mean, that just, my
I
heart.
met one last week and gosh, he's so sweet. And he saw the flag. It was at a charity event.
Oh my gosh!
And the flag was coming down with a parachute.
Oh.
And the pride in his eyes, and he was tearing up. And I was like, gosh, I have no idea what that would feel like.
Because what did he see?
Yeah.
And where was he?
Yeah. Such pride for our United States. And gosh, it was actually overwhelming for me too. I'm like, don't cry. Come on. But even conversely though, there are things that we can learn from our kids.
Yes.
And our young people, because really, again, back to, the whole community, collective communities, it's everyone having a voice, everyone talking things through, not trying to be overbearing to one another.
Right.
But having true dialogue.
Yep.
And working together for the good of all.
When I was at San Diego State, I was a communications major, and back in the day, and I don't know how it is now, but I would hope debate was a big part of what I was studying. But you had to debate both sides, and I think that's what an important tool.
Absolutely.
And they would flip it on you after 5 minutes, and you had to be prepared.
Wait, I don't like that side.
I know, but you have to be respectful of that side and know that standing up. It might not be how we feel, but it sure should be how we should know how to respond.
Well, and to be able to listen to that other
Exactly.
side. Okay, so you walk into a room, a bunch of young females, they want to be leaders. What would you tell them?
I would tell them that be careful in this world that we're living in now in 2022, that it is, be okay with who you are aside from your profile on social media. put your phone down, give it a week. Try to live without that and really indulge yourself. Learn how to be a student of the world that we live in. I think they should interview a senior citizen, somebody with special needs, somebody of a different race. And that is how I think you spend a week just literally once a day or, a bajillion of them. But surround yourself with others who are different than yourself. And that's a life lesson that we're not getting now.
So we talked, I don't really want to talk about what I do, but I can tell you one of the things that I do when I knock on doors, I never know who's going to be behind that door.
I love
when
that.
I was in new home sales, I would see people walking up to the door and I'd think, they're a potential buyer.
Mm-hmm.
Are they serious? What are they going to be like? And I loved because there were so many different voices and so many different people. I didn't choose them. They were chosen by coming to a community that I was selling homes at. I love that part of meeting different people because, and I always tell people, hey, listen, I'm knocking on your door because I want to find out how I could do a better job.
Yeah.
And if I don't hear your voice and I'm only listening to the voices that are around me on a regular basis, I'm stuck.
Yeah.
I can't learn anything. I can't learn anything. So I'm here at your door finding out what's important to you because I do care and I want to know.
Yeah.
I want to know what I can do to be better at my job. And that is hearing the diverse opinions and thoughts and parts of your community. So.
Right. And and that is, you're becoming a sponge to, just hearing somebody else's side. So I love that. Who's behind the door?
Absolutely. Well, we're out of time, believe it or not.
I could chat with you all day long.
I literally could chat with you too. We need to have a second one. We need to definitely have a follow-up at some point in time. What's next for you, real quick?
Really quick, I am I want to write a book about caregiving and honoring our elders, but those that are going through difficult times. I want to be helpful to others and give those resources that I've learned. And then just working along I have a private studio. I do media training, PR. I love that. Now it's very natural, and I'd love to not be behind the camera. I like to help other people.
Well, in your book, I would definitely hit on the fact, and I'm sure you probably will, but when you have a loved one or someone that you know that is not doing well and needs help, you've really got to advocate for them.
That is the number one job.
And I've been telling literally anyone that will listen to me in the healthcare field, we need an advocacy program that really is meaningful, that will help people navigate through that process.
Absolutely.
Because you don't know what you don't know, right?
You don't. And I've learned along the way. And I'll just say this last little tip. When my mom was in hospice, and you would think it's kind of a natural thing, but whatever. Just even putting up pictures of your family all around. We had a personalized blanket with pictures of my brothers and I and my mom. So it was laying right in front of her. And the hospice nurses were like, we've never seen this so much, this is, but we tried to make it home. And so, yes, I'd love to run an advocacy committee in healthcare. I would love that.
I think you're just the person to do it.
You have a job for me?
I don't know. I think we need to find a job for you because I love it. Yeah, I think you would really be good at that.
Aww.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you.
And I appreciate you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Now that was powerful. We hope you've been lifted and encouraged by today's inspiring voice. Always remember that life doesn't look exactly the same for each one of us. Never stop dreaming, striving, and thriving. In future episodes, we look forward to bringing you powerful stories from amazing women who learned how to lead in to challenges. Thank you for listening and being part of our community with SheEO host, Rebecca Jones.
You have been listening to a Cloudcast original. Local stories, local storytellers, local brands. Find more stories at cloudcast.us.